Okay, it's great to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be in Norway in February. Well, I'm enjoying it. So, I am retired, so for me, every night is Friday night, every morning is Saturday morning. Every week I wait for my Economist magazine to come so I can figure out what my friends in Europe are thinking. The amazing part about it is, and I recommend to all of you, there's a special report in The Economist, and I gotta tell you, they really got it right. It actually came out as I was leaving my house. There's 8 articles in here. Every one of them mention anti-access area denial. So I think it should be mandatory reading, and I wanted to let you know that. I too want to thank the cadets for their willingness to enter the profession of arms and to begin their journey to help provide security, stability, and peace wherever we can. And it's a lifelong commitment. You're going to love it and enjoy it every single day because, believe me, it actually ends. I had a great dinner with these gentlemen over here the other night. We had a lively conversation, and I think it would be appropriate to go ahead and start this discussion on air power A2AD and multi-domain with a video that I had the cadets in mind. But the other thing that I do, because I'm retired, I'm on the media, and I watch videos, and I find these really great videos that are relevant to the topic. Here's my first one. This is 1,000 years of European history in 1 minute. Up in the left-hand corner is the date. Down here is the reason for the change. There's nothing to say here. You know, as we were listening to the discussion yesterday with the academics and the politicians, one of them, they kept talking about change. Guess what? Change is the standard. Change is not the normal condition. And so we all have to adjust to that change because the world is going to change in those borders. This is the Game of Thrones period right here. That's how they were inspired. You can see by the changes why the Poles think a little bit differently than the Portuguese about security, stability, and peace, right? Switzerland's looking good. They showed up in 1300 and nothing's happened. It's no wonder they're neutral. But I think this is good context for our friends that are beginning their career. You can get texture on that discussion from these gentlemen because they've lived it. And along the way, we've taken the very risks that we're being asked to take in the future with multi-domain. What I love about this video is it ends in 2003, and take a look at where the Ukraine is. Okay? Then, that Saturday morning, I found another video. And this is a video about problem solving. The question is, which donkey are you? Now, I really love that video because honestly, with a little scotch, a fire, and some cigar, you could talk about that a long time. But the fact of the matter is, all 4 of those donkeys solve the problem. Which one do you want to be? The aggressive donkey? The follow me donkey? The hey, there's got to be an easier way donkey? Or the donkey that just sits back and lets it unfold? and basically enjoy the work of the previous 3. It's your choice, but I thought that was fun. But let's get back to air power. I know this is a joint environment, but it took me 37 years to boil it down to this. We have a strategy. My briefing today will be with a NATO focus because of the audience. That was the mission of NATO. It still is. NATO started in the collective defense mode. We wandered into the crisis management mode, when the Soviet Union fell, and then all of a sudden they snapped us back to the collective defense mode when they took Crimea and they started agitating on the eastern side of the Ukraine. This is what air forces provide for now. There's a little bit of different terms in NATO, but the bottom line is we provide air and space superiority. We provide global strike. We provide rapid global mobility. We provide intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. But most importantly, we are known to demand C2 that will basically bring together that Air Force, in our case, together to maximize the equipment that we have and to make sure that we are as effective as possible. As an airman, I don't care about efficiency. I care about effectiveness. We could talk about that all day long, but we won't today. Okay, so here are some things to think about. Organize, train, equip, deploy, and employ. Then we have the tactical level tasks of what we have been required to do, and that's find, fix, target, track, target, engage, and then assess. For your air chief, this is Norway's business. You organize, train, you equip the force, you deploy that force, if you offer it up in force generation, and then they employ under the flag of the alliance. These tasks are worthy to always keep in mind because everything that you procure, everything that you buy, you have to make sure that somehow it does this better. So that's Air Force 101. That is really, I think, the key to multi-domain battle. And I spent a lot of time sitting around going, we're buying this, it's going to help us track the target better, it's going to provide information that we can put on the link, which will make that battleship know where this is and all that stuff, and that's what we're going to do. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that. So for all you cadets, write this down. It took me 37 years to get this. Okay, multi-domain battle. This one is bothering me a little bit because this word has been around and it's been permutated and discussed in ways that I don't think was the original intent. When multi-domain first came up, at least in the United States Air Force, what we were talking about was blending the capabilities of air, space, and cyber in a way that collectively brought better capability. That's what I thought it was. Then all of a sudden I heard people start talking about it like, oh yeah, we're multi-domain. We bring together the air, the land, the sea, and all that stuff. And I go, no. We have a word for that. It's called joint. It's called coalition. This is different. And that's why I just wanted to list that out and state that right out front in case you have any questions for Dave and I. Because I think fundamentally people are going down the wrong path in this multi-battle thing because they're using it as an excuse not to procure the right stuff at the right level because somebody thinks there's magic out there that's going to help us find, fix, track, target, destroy, and then assess. Of course, the variable here is cyber. We don't know what it is necessarily. We don't know what we want it to do. We don't know if we're going to have the authority to use it. I know how to use it in the application of air. An Army person knows how to use it for the application on the land. Same with the Navy. The question is, how do we bring it all together to elevate the quality of the game. And to me, that's what the multi-domain battle concept is all about. Because we're going to need every piece of gear out there in order to win this, whatever's coming up. And I don't know what's coming up. And by the way, for you cadets, there's a lot of people who pretend to know what's going to happen in the future. Let me tell you something, they don't know anything. We just don't know what's going to happen. Okay. A2AD. A2AD came out of air-sea battle discussion because in the middle of the global war on terror, we were finding out that we were losing our skills in high-end combat, and we picked the Pacific because the United States pivoted to the Pacific. And we found out that looks like we're not going to be able to do what we do in the global war on terror out there because they figured out that if we let them, if they let us get there, they're going to lose. That's where it started. So up to that point, it was all academia, kind of what's in the future, and then all of a sudden, Crimea happened. And then all of a sudden, Kaliningrad happened. In the real world, Kaliningrad became literally the best defended piece of airspace on the planet. But, denying area and denying access is as old as combat. And some people didn't like that term. So people started using the terms permissive, contested, and then denied. Have you heard that one? That's another one that comes out there. Permissive, contested, denied came out because anti-access looked like it was going to require a lot of stuff. So, it's kind of a contested environment. It's not really denied, whatever. But the bottom line is all of these things are interchangeable. In the old days in NATO, when I was in the 80s, under the command of these gentlemen right here, we had A2AD environments. Not only were they really contested, but they moved along with that giant army going through the Fulda Gap. And we were worried about mobile missiles over that army and SA-6s and SA-8s. And we made an airplane. We made an A-10 with a titanium bathtub to be able to absorb ZSU hits. That's what we did. We invested in Patriot at the time when that came out. I mean, the whole world was A2AD, and so this is nothing new. This is just, people coming back, and I'll be talking about them in just a second, and basically saying, holy cow, we cannot let the Western coalition get here, set up operations, because we are going to lose. That's what happened. So what's different? Well, that liberal, democratic, rules-based world order that the gentleman we're talking about yesterday is deteriorating. And all those institutions that support that liberal world order, the UN and the NATO and the World Bank and all that stuff, they're having challenges. Brexit is coming, nationalism is on the rise, those kinds of things, all of that's happening. Who doesn't love the liberal world order? I know two countries that don't like the liberal world order. China and Russia don't like the liberal world order. Even though they flourished under that order because we wanted peace, we wanted stability, we wanted security, and we let them go, is what we did. And they grew under the liberal-based world order. That's the reality of it. Nobody's fault. It's just normal. Why address something when you don't have to do it? Okay, that's what happened. So that's a change. Technology. An S-400 is not an SA-5. It's much more capable. And they've learned. And they've layered these systems where there is no place to go once they see you. You're going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to take risk. The question, are we willing to take the risk? The good news about technology is technology gives and technology can take away. And I'll talk about that in just a second. Rising great powers with near-peer capability. Great power is a new word. I don't even know what that means. We talked yesterday, unipolar, bipolar, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, these are rising nations. They don't like where they're at. They want the rules to be changed. And they have developed, while we weren't watching, or we deliberately ignored, them mimicking exactly what we were doing. And we saw Russia deploy some of that stuff openly in Syria just to demonstrate what they could do and where they're at. That's causing us some problems. And then finally, rising great powers operating below the threshold of conflict. This is a cottage industry, hybrid warfare. I mean, there's so many experts on hybrid warfare, it makes your head spin. For me, I'll explain it the easy way. For years, I was told there were 4 elements of national power: diplomacy, information, military, economic, right? The dime, the famous dime. We ignored the 3 other elements of national power, which are obvious, but we don't talk about them a lot, and that is location, resources, and population. Those 3 define the differences between China and Russia. Russia is a failing state. Single-dimensional economy, population. I loved when the gentleman came up and talked about the lifespan of a male in Russia, 60 years old. Can you imagine? I'd be dead. This is a problem that's going to require 30 years to fix if they started tomorrow and had the resources to do it. Okay, so they operate using the dime, except they don't use it like we do. They use it to their advantage. They mix up the D, the I, the M, and the E in any way that gives them advantage. And you just read anything on how Putin did Crimea and how Putin did the Ukraine. So now, if that's not bad enough, then you have the Western powers who insist on using the dime in chronological order. We do diplomacy, we do information, we do economic sanctions, and then and only then we wait till the very end and we use military force. So this would be equivalent of a football coach, not knowing what the other team's going to do, but the other team has your playbook, like you read about. And he plays us like a fiddle. That's the reality of it. That's gray space. That's hybrid warfare. Simply put, using the terms that I've known and what I was taught with respect to the elements of national power. Okay? So, that's A2AD. That's the difference. What are the effects of A2AD? A2AD, real quick. First of all, for NATO, this is bad because it's a direct challenge to our ability to reinforce. The spillover of the IADs in Kaliningrad will become a problem if we have to reinforce that area for any reason. In air, land, sea, whatever domain you're talking about, it's going to be tough to do. And there's going to be some risk that's going to have to be taken. It erodes deterrence, nuclear and conventional deterrence. Okay? Remember, deterrence is 2 things. It's credibility and willingness. Right? Now, I break down credibility to capability, capacity, and proficiency. And in the NATO context, willingness is consensus. The decision to move forward on Article 5. Remember what nuclear deterrence is. I've heard a lot of speeches on nuclear deterrence. I don't even know what they're talking about. All I know is about MAD, mutually assured destruction. This is the idea that the first nuclear strike can be absorbed and you maintain enough capability to destroy the enemy on a second strike. It's just that simple. We've made it into something that it isn't. It's just that simple. The enemy has to fear you in order to deter you, in order for you to deter them. It's just that simple. It consumes resources, peacetime and conflict. The only thing I'll say about this, when it came to Syria, President Obama was told that it would take 300 aircraft, an unlimited amount of time, to take down the Syrian IATs. That's a 70s IATs. Think about an S-400. Think about Kaliningrad. Everything's mobile. Find, fix, track, target, destroy, assess. That's what we have to do. That's the check. A2AD simply neutralizes the real advantage that NATO has. Air and sea, and the ability to get the ground forces in place and ready to defend the alliance under an Article 5 construct. And then finally, it supports terror. It inspires fear. I don't know about you, but I'm not taking any airline that flies over the Ukraine anytime soon. I mean, what happened there was the equivalent of little green men. All of a sudden, there's an SA-11 roaming around, and without any command and control, and now you have an airliner down. The Kaliningrad IAD right now covers more than 1/2 of Poland and a lot of the Baltics today. That's not insignificant. So that's what A2AD effects are. So my advice is to accept the realities. Okay? These are some realities that I believe are important for this topic. The power reality. NATO potential power is not real power. We're very wealthy, we have great militaries, but it's not real until we buy stuff and then we offer it up to the alliance for its use. And I think you'll agree with me, that's a problem every single day. Do you know what the combined GDP of NATO is? $36 trillion. That's 36 with 12 zeros behind it. $36 million is what the GDP of NATO is. You know what the GDP of Russia is? 2 states in the United States have a bigger GDP than Russia. $1.3 trillion. And Putin walks around like he's a genius. 9 out of the top 20 GDPs are in NATO. 3 of those top 20 GDPs are NATO partners. 1's neutral. Only 1's a threat. By the way, 2 of the 9 NATO allies in the top 20 GDP meet 2%. 2 of them don't even meet 1%. This is a choice. Okay? We're making a choice here because, by the way, 8 out of the top 20 militaries in the world are NATO. 3 of the top 20 are NATO partners. So we have a lot of potential power, but it's not real power until it's on the ramp, it's being trained, it's used. We have people, we have TTPs, we have guidance, and we have all the stuff that we need to do to translate that into real power. Transition reality. When deterrence fails, prompt consensus is pivotal. Collective defense must be decisive. Here's the problem. There's only been one Article 5 declaration in all of NATO history. You remember what it was? 9/11. You know how long it took for NATO to formally declare an Article 5 on that one? 3 weeks. This is complicated stuff. I'm not being pejorative about it. All I'm saying is, if deterrence is going to work, consensus is pivotal, and it's got to happen rapidly if we're going to do a good collective defense. The threat reality. The enemy has a vote. And guess what? They could choose war. Why is this important? NATO has never known deterrence to fail. I mean, it's not a normal condition. The question is, if deterrence fails, what do we do then? And then the force reality. They got to be ready, deployable, and sustainable. So those are the realities. My advice is go back to basics on the realities. I actually had 30 things when I retired that I wrote down in a paper of things that we could do in the short term to address these realities. Here are the big ones. Obviously, the first one's a throwaway. I'm not going to lecture here, on whether or not you should be at 2%. It's a Wales agreement. Whenever it happens, et cetera, nations do what's in their national interest, regardless of what alliance that they're in. That's where we're at. Airfield interoperability, weapons, BMD, persistent ISR, AAR, those are things that we need to work on. We are moving forward in some of these particular areas, but to be perfectly honest, there's a lot of dependence on the United States, quite honestly, for a lot of this capability. Weapons. I want to highlight that. Does anybody know here how many weapons, precision-guided munitions, we've used in the war on ISIS since 2014? 110,000. How are our weapons inventories looking? Our industry back in the States is beavering away trying to keep up with this. But we're not dropping anything other than a precision-guided munition at this point. And you might as well get used to it. And I can't think of anything better of a deterrent than an inventory that's full and ready for combat, whatever we choose to be the right number. 30 days, 60 days, I don't really care, just choose. But that's an example. I could talk about each one of these. We need to charter working groups on A2AD, air defense, and deterrence so that we can collectively be on the same sheet of music with respect to these very important topics, not for us necessarily, but to make sure that the political part of NATO understands exactly what the implications are and exactly what we're trying to do. We need to war game with senior political and military leadership, not their representatives. That intern that you have is really a great person, but I'm not interested in talking to them, to be perfectly honest. So we need that. We need to exercise. We need to replace air policing with air defense. I've been on this role for a long time. I don't know what air policing is. I do. I don't like it. We're a defensive alliance. Why can't we call it air defense? When we were trying to reset with Russia, we didn't say air defense because they would say, who are you defending against? Oh, no, we're just policing ourselves. The problem is air defense is a mindset. Air policing is aircraft and radars and sensors only. Air defense is radars, ground-based air defense, and then airspace control measures. We need to practice that every single day, and we need to let anybody know that we're going to defend our airspace with all vigor. We need to develop strategic INW and allow planning. I believe that we should have a standing mission in NATO for INW. I think that the political leadership in NATO should get together and tell the military part what to look for every year. And then I think we need to force generate assets to collect that data. And then planning. We don't plan until there's consensus. That's tough to do. We need to establish a standing, fully functional air operations center. Obviously, for those of you that don't know, we operate under a core JFAC concept, where if we have a conflict, we would stand up a JFAC. I have to say, that is very difficult to do. It looks easy, we've made it look easy, but it's really not the right way to go because you're not training people every single day to operate with their compatriots, in the ops and the future ops and the ISR and the mobility and then, the ballistic missile defense and all that stuff. So that's what I think we should do. And then the other thing we need to get really good at, and we need to man sufficiently, is processing, exploitation, and dissemination of intel, and we need to regain targeting capability. Because we're dropping precision-guided munitions. You know what happens when you drop precision-guided munitions? You hit the target. You better know what you're hitting. And there's plenty of examples where this kind of goes awry. The Baltic War was pretty good until we bombed the Chinese embassy. Okay? So these are back to basics things that need to be done in order to find, fix, track, target, engage, and assess. Now, here comes the future. Back to basics 201. This is all this emerging technology that's coming out there. This is a list of stuff I got from The Economist magazine and the third offset. I can talk specifically to any of these. I'll wait on questions on this. But these are the things in play. Artificial intelligence, narrow AI and general AI, in the loop, on the loop, or off the loop. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to read up on AI. Okay? Machine learning, robotics, big data analysis is quite an interesting adventure. I think there's a lot of things that you can do with respect to unclassified databases that are out there, particularly social media databases that the wizards work this, like you read about. Autonomous learning. These last few are the elements of the third offset. That I don't know who's heard of the third offset verbiage. Okay, for those of you that don't know, the first offset was in the 1950s. We were overmatched conventionally. We did an offset, and through military research, we developed a whole series of nuclear weapons from hand grenades all the way to big ones in order to counter that conventional threat. The second offset was in the 70s, when everybody caught up to what we were doing nuclear-wise. And for a while there, we wanted to do neutron bomb, we wanted to do EMP, all that stuff. But what came out of the second offset was stealth, precision-guided munitions, conventional ways to achieve very good results. That's what we committed to in the 70s. Now the third offset is underway because the adversaries, potential adversaries, have caught up in those conventional ways, and now we're trying to figure out how we regain that overwhelming advantage that we've enjoyed since 1950. Human-machine collaborative decision-making, and those 5 things are what's being talked about. Many of them contain AI elements. Many of them contain big data elements. But they're all designed basically to assist human beings through technology to be able to execute their mission better. So this is Back to Basics 201. For you cadets, this is what you're going to be dealing with. Okay? There's lots of issues embedded into that, but I would urge you, particularly the Norwegian Air Force, where many of you are going to fly the F-35, and there's new ways to use that airplane. And actually the F-35 is an example of some of this 201. Because what we have now in the F-35, I was talking with your air chief, we have an airplane now that can do 4 of the 5 Air Force core missions. It does air and space superiority, it does strike, it does ISR, and I'm happy to report that it's really adept at doing C2. Put a travel pod on it, and now you got a mobility asset. It's fantastic. Okay, I'm out of time. I'll be happy to answer questions on this. I want to close with another fantastic video. I think this is a little bit loud, so sorry about that, but this is a cool video. We'll just watch it. Be careful what window you're scraping. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.